before we begin, thank you very much to If Superman Was a Transformer, Would He Turn Into a Bird, a Plane, or Both? For joining the Patreon campaign. I mean, it'd be funny. It'd be funny for Superman to turn into a bird or plane. That's very thematic. He could also technically turn into a locomotive, if we want to get that one in there too. It's probably just a Kryptonian spaceship. Who are we kidding? They wouldn't do anything like, if they actually got that by some miracle, they wouldn't do anything that silly, which is unfortunate because that would be more interesting, frankly. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different than my usual content because this is something I finally got to do, and I've been waiting literal years to get to do this. So I think I wasn't the only one who had the idea of, as long as I'm in Orlando and as long as I'm going to be there a day early for TFCon, instead of just sitting in my hotel room bored to tears all night all day on Thursday, why don't I just go to Galaxy's Edge? Why don't I just go to Disney World? Like, why not? I was going to do the customizing class, but it was like $90. There's part of me is just like, no, just throw an extra $60 in and spend the day at Disney. Because I've always wanted to do Galaxy's Edge ever since it was, but I've never had the opportunity. You would think a Floridian would have the opportunity to go to Galaxy's Edge, to go to Disney World in general. But no, not really. So as long as I was in town, had nothing better to do, this seemed like a perfect opportunity. While a blast, it's the reason why I didn't have as much to spend at TFCon as I wanted. But, you can't really put a value on experiences you enjoy this much, So let's just go through. So when I say I wanted to go to Galaxy's Edge, I mean I'm going to Disney's Hollywood Studios, which has a lot of different areas in it related to, they're more like Hollywood-centric stuff. It just happens to have Star Wars in it too. I feel like I wasted the trip because there's a lot of areas I didn't really explore. It's unfortunate, but, stuff to do next time, I guess. So, for instance, like they had a replica of the Chinese theater in LA, the one, where the stars leave their handprints. And they do the same thing at this one too. So it was actually kind of cool seeing just like random celebrities, and a lot of them are like really classic Hollywood celebrities, and there's a few from the 90s and 2000s, but extremely cool to see, to just kind of know like this is a permanent spot where this famous person was. This person, like Robin Williams, was an incredibly cool one for me to see. And to see his daughter Zelda in there too, like I think that's great. I think that's great that his kids were in it too. So there's a ton of them like that. I really, really wished that my hand fit Robin Williams' hand. His is a little bit bigger than mine. Mine did seem to fit Mark Hamill's though. So that felt appropriate for my intent on this trip. So there's things to do. It's mostly shops in the Hollywood section. It, like the way I describe it, it kind of feels like walking into like Toontown from from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because it's all old-timey Hollywood, and just the way the stores are laid out and like the fake streets and all that. So it's a throwback in time, but there's a lot of stuff there to do that I didn't get to do. Like they have a Muppet 3D theater. I didn't do that. There is an exclusive cartoon that airs at the Chinese theater. Didn't do that. So it's stuff to do next time. There's plenty of exploring. There's also like really like cool like eating situations. There's like a throwback retro futuristic drive-in theater kind of thing. There's a super retro dine-in experience where it kind of feels like you're like sitting around like a 1940s, 1950s house having dinner. Things like that. Like weird, unique experiences. So I kind of want to go back and do those. A lot of them are also at the Toy Story Land, which is right next door to Galaxy's Edge. And the theme to the Toy Story Land, and I actually really, really like this, is that you are the size of a toy. And everything in there is just is built out of gigantic toys. So, you've got like Tinker Toys and blocks making up all these fixtures. You've got, army men who are the size of actual men. You got, like, I love the fencing. I love that the fence is made of Kinects. That felt so cool and fun. Even the bathroom. The bathroom's built out of old classic toys, building blocks, and Scrabble pieces. I love this. It's so characterful. But the reason it's hard to actually go to this park is because it's themed after being being the size of a toy in Andy's backyard, which means there's no shade for anything. You're just out there baking. And granted, beautiful day to go to a park. The temperature was perfect. It was like half cloudy most of the day. Perfect weather for going to a theme park. But still, you stand out in the sun long enough, I don't care if you've got SPF 2000, you're going to bake eventually. So this one it's a little bit hard standing around this park. Definitely want to do it again when I go back, because I'm definitely going back. The one thing I made sure to do when I went outside of the Star Wars land was the Indiana Jones stunt show. Not only because it looked really cool, but also I have a lot of respect for stunt actors because it's very dangerous work, and it takes so much coordination, timing, body control, all manner of skill sets just to safely perform these kind of stunts, and to do them every day in front of a live audience and never mess it up. At least I don't think they've messed it up. Is incredible, because it really is like spears shooting out of the ground. It really is balls of flame erupting around the stunt actor, things trying to fall down on his head, giant drops, like it's real stunt work. And the coolest thing here is that once they finish like the Temple of Doom recreation, they do a recreation of Cairo from the Indiana Jones movies. And then they do like the Escape from Russia, where there's a fight on a plane. Like there's a fake plane that comes out. And every time they change scenes, they tractor out these huge sets to open up and reveal the next set behind it. And they describe to you like what goes into making the stunt shows work, so you gain a lot of respect for how it's performed in the movies. It's a great show. They perform every day. But the topic of the video is Galaxy's Edge. So let us go into Galaxy's Edge because, there's a lot to talk about there too. Which, by the way, I didn't actually have anything appropriate for the fictional planet of Batuu that we were visiting. And I did not have any kind of Star Wars clothing either. So I wore the closest thing I had, which was a Spaceball shirt. Some of the staff found it funny, ironic, which was what I was going for. But no, the thing I tell people, who tell me, who ask, like, how was Galaxy's Edge? And the thing I tell everyone is atmosphere. The atmosphere is absolutely incredible. Once you actually go, and once you are actually inside Batuu, you don't see anything else. Toy Story Land is just, one, quick walk over. But you don't see any of that. You don't hear any of it while you're in Star Wars. The Tower of Terror is a giant pink tower that you can see from a mile away when you are driving to the park. Well, you can't see it in Galaxy's Edge. It's intentionally blocked out. And that's incredible attention to detail. And while you're walking around, everything is grungy and dirty. It's all painted. Everything's clean, but it looks grimy and rusty, and it looks like you're on like Batuu or Tatooine, if you're from the older movies. And it just feels right. It just feels like you're on a desert planet in Star Wars with a bunch of junk shops around and, makeshift places made out of like old, like war bunkers and things like that. It's just incredibly cool. From top to bottom, you just look around and you're just like surrounded by really cool Star Wars visuals. There's craters of like crashed ship parts, where like a pod or something landed. There's droids just sitting around, just beeping and booping at people. Things like, God, I'm trying to like figure the whole thing out and explain the whole thing. But like, it just feels right. And like when you're walking around, you'll hear sounds like it'll be playing music from the movies, like very gentle background music. But every now and then you'll also hear like a spaceship fly by. So you're like, you like almost look up, expecting to have seen like an X-wing go past you. Of course it didn't. Of course it didn't. But it sounds like it did. It sounds like you just missed it. It feels alive. It feels alive when you're there, and it's incredible. They nailed it. They absolutely nailed the experience of like being there. And then there's the ships. You know, when you're just walking through and you just like casually walking around a full-size replica of the Millennium Falcon. It's kind of incredible. It's kind of incredible. And that's all over this place, by the way. You keep looking, there's an X-Wing parked that you can see. We have like Kylo Ren's ship, which is actually part of like an actual live stage performance they do. Kylo Ren and stormtroopers will appear from inside, coming out of this ship. There'll be some force shenanigans going on, and then they'll start kind of patrolling around and like trying to sniff out the crowd for resistance members, because they're looking for Rey and Chewbacca. That's the theme, and you'll spot Rey and Chewbacca around the park too if you're lucky. But they're always on a different route than the stormtroopers are, so they never actually encounter each other. It's a really clever way they set it up. But yeah, you still run into things like, here's a Jedi starfighter. And then here's like a land speeder and a speeder bike. Well, not a speeder bike. Looks more like a pod racer, but there's not, like, the details aren't quite there. You get it. You get it. There's vehicles all around this place, and it really just puts you in this really great vibe. Like, I'm like standing beside a real legendary Star Wars vehicle. It's so cool. Speaking of atmosphere, there's a few places to actually eat if you actually want to have the Star Wars experience of you went to eat at Star Wars and got space food. So there's Docking Bay 7, which actually feels like a docking bay that was reorganized into like a makeshift cafeteria. You are eating around and sometimes even inside cargo containers that had been redone to be like booths for a restaurant. And again, it's atmospheric to like the nth degree. It's fantastic. Some of the dishes are kind of weird, but they do leave you some like very basic, simple options if you're not feeling adventurous. Like this is supposed to be like, I can't remember what the dish is called, but it's basically space chicken. Is what it is. It's basically two big chicken croquettes on a bed of macaroni and cheese. So it's not that like extravagant or anything. Enough to fill you up. And yes, I got the thermal detonator of Coke. I got one of Sprite. I got one for Sprite too. Because I loved that. I love how like wrapped everything is, so that you, even if you're drinking a Coca-Cola, you still are doing Star Wars stuff, The food experience I didn't get to have, well, there's a few, because there's like a popcorn vendor, but I'm not big on popcorn. I know that's blasphemous. I'm just not. I did, however, get the blue milk. The blue milk is not milk, for those who do not know. It's coconut milk. So even if you are lactose intolerant, or even if you are like hardcore vegan, you can have it and not get into any trouble. So anyone can have the blue milk. And it's not milky. It's more like slushy. And it kind of, I don't even like coconut, but I didn't taste the coconut in this. It tasted more like the milk from Fruity Pebbles. Just a little bit thinner and like little bits of ice in it. It was good though. It was good. They got green milk too. At first I didn't even see the stall because you have to look for these pods hanging above. I want to try the green later on. It didn't sound as good as the blue though. So I don't know. I'll do the green next time I'm there just to say I did it. Just for the sake of it. I did not do Oga's Cantina. They actually have a bar there. It's set up like a cantina, like you saw in like episode 4, A New Hope. Kind of like Maz Eisley style. The DJ that used to pilot Star Tours is manning the DJ booth, which I thought was a really funny way of reusing him. But honestly, like I don't drink, so all the really like good sounding beverages I couldn't have. And the non-alcoholic stuff is mostly like, it's mostly like different flavors of Powerade mixed in with some like extra fruit flavors and things. It all sounded really weird. Like none of the drinks were very appealing. Like not to make me, nothing felt good, like nothing looked good enough on the menu for me to wait in line and sit in elbow to elbow room in the cantina just to have a drink that I didn't really want, you know? So we skipped out on that. Might go next time. Did not skip on the shopping. There's a great setup to their souvenir stands in this one. So one of the things is there is like a hallway. There's like an alleyway where there's just these different alcoves set up on the side, and the different alcoves have different shops in them. So like one of them will be selling like fashion from Batu. So if you want to fit in, you can buy some clothes and like quick change into something that kind of fits more into the vibe of the park and, you know, kind of how everything feels, which is a really cool trick to do. And then, you know, unfortunately I didn't do that. There's also like clothing stores. There's like, the way the park works is that there is an Imperial, or I guess First Order side of the park. And then on one far end, and then on the extreme other end through a tunnel, there is a resistance area. If you remember the resistance area that was in like the first of the reboot trilogy, The Force Awakens, it feels like that area. You know, and there you've got like a souvenir stall that has like resistance style clothing and pilot helmets. There's the First Order also has their own shop with stormtrooper helmets and like Star Wars t-shirts, little tiny replicas of AT-ATs, things like that. Didn't do any shopping like that because of course I'm looking more at like toys I can mess with. Of course I am. And there's fun stuff like that too. So for starters, there is Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities, which is the largest shop. It's the only one that's like outside of like the Droid Depot that's just like buried in its own little special building. And yeah, unfortunately, I didn't think to get a photo of the inventory. I thought I did, but I couldn't find it. What you're looking at here is the wall. And the wall is incredible because it's just loaded with Star Wars like memorabilia and just like recognizable elements, different helmets that different types of troopers wore, different weapons from different places in the galaxy. And it's all laid out like, you know, Doc Ondar collected all of this junk himself, you know, across his journeys. And he's there as an animatronic, just kind of like going about the day's business, like, you know, like counting up the books and doing inventory or whatever he's doing. But he is obviously very hard at work while you are shopping in his store. This is where you go to get the replica lightsabers, like the actual like ones that are from the movies and the games. This is where you go to get the kyber crystals for the custom built lightsabers, as well as the holocrons. And this is the photo I meant to take, because there's two different holocrons. There is the Sith and the Jedi, and there's all on this one big wall that has an alcove big enough for one holocron each. And they were completely stocked, full, complete wall of Sith holocrons, completely empty on the Jedi. Because the Sith ones only work with the red and black crystals, at which the black crystals are super rare, and they're really just red crystals recolored. And then all 5 of the other colors do the exact same generic Palpatine voice in the Sith holocron. So no one wants the Sith holocron because it barely does anything. So instead, you go and get the Jedi holocron, where every one of the crystals does something unique. Even if you put a red one in, you're still guaranteed to get Yoda's voice teaching you about the dark side. So it's very cool and important to get a Jedi holocron to get the most out of your Kyber crystal collection. So of course, that's the one that's sold out. Of course, that's the one that's sold out. And like I said, I thought for sure I got a photo of it because it was just the funniest thing to me. But unfortunately, no. You know, there's also other things there, you know, like animal heads on the walls and things like that. So like you feel like, you know, this is like a big trading hub, essentially. But yeah, some of the best gear was in here, and like some of the most interesting stuff. Like if you wanted that like ice cream maker that's actually like a little protective vault, yeah, this is where you bought that. You know, things like that, and like little added accessories for other things around the shop, like lightsaber hand, like holders and things like that. So that's probably the biggest shop. But there's others. Like I said, when you go down that alleyway, there's a lot of little nook and cranny shops that are fun. Just kind of looks like people just set up shop in like these little, like uh, abandoned spaces and just do whatever they want. So, for instance, we had what was the shop called? What was this shop called? Toy Dairy and Toy Maker, right? And it's like a lot of like toys that look like they were handcrafted out of just like spare parts and scraps that they salvaged off of the planet. So like little tin toys that look like they were made out of like scrap ship parts, or wooden toys like these Mandalorians and Grogus. And these are fun. These are fun. They have a very charming aspect to them. There's little plushies that look very like handmade too. Nothing that really appealed to me. Like they used to do little tin toys of like AT-ATs and Millennium Falcons that kind of look like they were made from scrap. That would have been fun, but they didn't have those at the time. What they did have that I thought was funny was they actually had the space chest from the first movie. Dejarik board game. I don't know if Dejarik actually is playable, but there are all the pieces for it. But to make sure it's practical and you can still do something with it, you flip it over and there's a checker set. So you can play checkers with it too. I thought that was cute. There's also the creature shop, which I probably should have gotten something in. So it's basically just like little aliens from the Star Wars universe, like, porgs, the lizard monkeys, or the monkey lizards, rather. Like tiny little, there's like things like tiny little sarlaccs in like safety containers, like containment unit things. It's really cute, and it's like there's a lot of really fun stuff there that I really thought I was going to pick up something, but then I never got around to it. So that's another souvenir I need to get next time I'm around. Yeah, and it's just like a lot of famous little aliens and creatures that all have some kind of little function or animatronic thing about them, which is cool. So they all have some kind of like toyetic side of things. So, yeah, I almost got one of the lizard monkeys, but then like it's a shoulder puppet. The one you control with like a little handle and a cable, but the cable makes it almost impossible to do any kind of display or storage with it. So I tried to avoid it, even though having a little Salacious Crumb would have been funny. But it is fun. Speaking of, like, creature-wise, like, every shop you go into has, like, some kind of pet creature around that's kind of animatronic. So, like, you could run into a giant frog, or you could run into whatever this kind of, like, bird-looking frog is in the water. A friend of mine really liked the snail, the giant space snail, which I thought was kind of cute. And a lot of these are also animatronic. So you can actually see them moving, you can see them breathing, you can see them trying to sleep, whatever it might be. But again, they're details that just add life to the park and make it feel like it's more than just set dressing. You could actually believe that like this thing is just sitting around waiting for the next time someone's going to dump flakes or mice or whatever you feed a tiny little sarlacc. And it's really cool. It's really cool experience. So beyond all of that, there's also the rides. I did all 3 of the major Star Wars rides. So I can go through those a little bit. There's one that's outside the park because it's existed since before Galaxy's Edge, and that's Star Tours. It is a little weird that you have to leave Star Wars land, cross through like old-timey Hollywood and Indiana Jones stuff in order to actually get to Star Tours, but it's just where it's always been set up, and they weren't going to move the whole building just to make it part of like the Star Wars world. And really the way it's laid out, it really wouldn't be like, it would be kind of out of place to do it. But it is cool. Like when you go in, you walk underneath like an active AT-AT, which I thought was an incredibly cool experience. I don't have any visuals from it because they didn't allow photos on this ride of any kind. But basically, if you've never been, you're put on like a tourist transport. And when you're walking in, you do actually get to see R2D2 and C3PO manning the whole thing and trying to make sure like everything's up and ready for the next flight, which is really fun in itself. But C3PO also plays a major part because in the story of the ride, he kind of gets stuck piloting this thing by some weird happenstance. And you're flying with C3PO under the controls on this automatically guided tour, and every time it goes into hyperspace, you come out in some other part of Star Wars. And the fun thing about Star Tours is it's just a simulator ride, so it's just kind of like reacting and like moving around according to what's on the screen. But every time you go, you're going to get 2 scenes that are randomized. So you could have a completely different experience if you just did this ride 5 times in one day. You get a different experience every single time. For me, we got the pod race on Naboo. Not on Naboo, like, on Tatooine. We got the pod race on Tatooine, which was fun because you crash into Zabulba and cost him the race, which is fun. And then when we hyper jumped again, like we're at the Battle of Naboo. I believe it was the Battle of Naboo because I could see like because I could see like the ships from that battle. It could have been a different one, but it was a hectic time. So like you had a little exciting way of finishing it off. It was super cool. It's super cool, but it's probably like the weakest of the 3 rides, even though it's very enjoyable. The other big ride is the one you're looking at right now, which is Smuggler's Run. And Smuggler's Run is really fascinating. It's one where you kind of want to wait in the line because you get a great view of the Millennium Falcon from other angles. Like if you want to see the top of the Falcon, you gotta wait in the main line in order to get a good view of it. So sometimes you actually want to wait in line because the atmosphere is really, really good. I did lightning pass this one because I just wanted to make sure I got to do it. And it was great. It was great. So if you've never been on the ride, the idea is that they are borrowing the Millennium Falcon for this run, but you're the ones who get to drive it. Don't know who allowed that, but that's how it works. And everyone who participates gets to be one of 3 different positions. You're either a pilot, a gunner, or the engineer. And the parts of the ride actually function. So one of the pilots moves the Falcon left and right, and on the screen, it actually moves in accordance. Same thing of the up and down. When you go into hyperspace, the pilot who hits the button is actually hitting the button, and actually triggering it. The gunners actually are firing at enemies that fly by, and they're scoring points for kills. And then the engineer has to fix it every time the pilots crash, or every time the enemies get a shot on us. So the engineer's kind of stuck in the back, not really doing any of the heavy participation, but it's a cooperative game. And at the end of it, you do get a score based on how you did, which I thought was really funny. We actually didn't do too bad. We lost less than 4,000 credits. The rank of pirate, which was really funny because the same night I did Galaxy's Edge, I also got back in time to do my D&D game where we were in a pirate arc. So that was hilarious. But I want to go on this ride again. I really want to be the pilot. I was the gunner, which was fun, but really exhausting on my hand because you just had to tap the buttons on this side over and over and over and over. Wrist wears out. And one time I had to switch over and start hitting with this hand. But I want to be the pilot. I even want to try the engineer because the engineer has kind of like the worst job, but they also get to see all the chaos happening in front of them and everyone else in the other spots freaking out, which is also funny. And then there is the big ride. Rise of the Resistance is the most popular ride there. It's sometimes a 2-hour wait in order to get on this. And because there's so many animatronics going on in this ride, it's commonly broken down. So you also have that to worry about as well. So you might be in line and just find out it's going to be another 30 minutes because one of the droids just stopped working. But the wait in this one is, again, very atmospheric. You're going through what looks out like dug out tunnels from a resistance base. There's random tech and pipes going through the walls and across the ceiling. It's all very ramshackle. It looks like they used like whatever parts were lying around in order to serve whatever purpose they needed. And you're walking through and they have like storage lockers filled with like little memorabilia things and replicas of helmets, blasters, uniforms. So you're getting like a little bit of a tour of just like different props and things. They're not actually from movies, but they are, actually like they actually do set the mood. It's just a really, really, really long tunnel, and then you get like familiar aspects, like the translucent blue flight, like space maps and things like that. Now, eventually, it does open up into like a main area. And in the main area, you can see BB-8 manning certain, kind of manning things from above. And at some point, you're going to get a storyline that's from, that involves both Poe Dameron on screen and Rey in holographic form, which actually works really, really well. So, and then the fact that it's just like the actual actors performing these makes it extra cool. They're not stand-ins or anything, which is actually kind of great. So this ride moves really quickly, so I couldn't get too many photos, and I really wish I could because there's so many cool things that happen. So when the debriefing is over, they're just basically evacuating you from the planet before the First Order can get you. So you are walked outside through these big doors, and Poe Dameron's X-Wing is to your right, and you're walking toward this like shuttle that's parked on the ground. You open it up, and you get inside, and it's like a subway car, because there's seats, but there's also a lot of handles and bars that you just have to hold on to for the duration of the ride. And there is a Mon Calamari in the pilot seat, an animatronic one, and this is a screen that is actually showing you what's going on outside. And it's a motion ride. You get a really good sense of motion. Disney rides are very good at conveying what direction you are moving in, even when you're not actually moving. Really well done there to convince yourself you are taking off from the planet. You are turning and moving around. And then you get tractored in by the First Order. And when you get stopped, the doors you walked in on, remember, you were outdoors and then walked inside, like literal outdoors, not like a fake room or anything. You were literally outside in Florida. And then you walk into this shuttle. They close the doors. You go through this little miniature ride. And then when they open the doors again, you're inside a First Order Star Destroyer. Like you are actually inside like a landing bay in the ship. And the room is gigantic, and there's a huge view screen that's all LED lit up to look like space, and the edges are glowing to make it look like there's a force field between you and space, just like in the movies. There's a horde of stormtroopers there just watching you and waiting for you to do something. And for their credit, at this point, they actually give you a minute or so to absorb it and just experience it, get photos. Like, they know this is like a super cool experience people are going to want to capture some memory of. So I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they let you do that. But the story now is that you are being taken in for interrogation by the First Order. So now those Disney employees are just kind of rushing you through the ride. They actually do feel like they're from the First Order. And now they feel like they're a lot more authoritarian than they were a minute ago. So it all played in. They funnel you into smaller groups. They set you in front of doors and they send you in. These are supposed to be like little holding cells, and they match ones from Star Wars. And you get a scene where it's Hux and Kylo Ren come to interrogate you. My favorite part of this is during the escape, like you see the glowing outline on the wall where they're cutting through the wall. And then like the wall, like a jagged part of the wall, pulls away and slides forward. And there's the resistance like trying to pull you in and trying to get you to escape. And that's where the ride begins. And it's one of those like magnetic rides. So there's no actual visible track. You're just in this car being driven and spun around by an R5 droid. And as you go, you are escaping. Oh, I should actually switch these images so you can actually see. Like, I know I show a snippet of video, but like this is like where you're looking at, so you get a good look. Here's the hallways for the second part of the ride. Very sterile, very orderly, very imperial. But when you're on the ride itself, you're being chased and stalked by Kylo Ren the whole time. So like walls will burst open and there he is. It's hologram again, but it works and it's effective. And then he'll show up again later in the ride, and he'll be a really well-performed animatronic that is like using force powers to push and pull the cars that you are on. Really, really cool, inventive stuff. Like it feels like a real escape. There's like an actual sense of tension. Incredibly well done ride. I can see why it's so popular, because it's a lot of fun to ride, and like definitely like one of the only experience. Like I want to repeat that one too. I don't know if I want to wait in another 70-minute line. If you go in the late afternoon, that's when I find that the line is calmed down. If you want to get any later, you got to wait for the final act, the Phantasmic performance. And everyone's going to go to Phantasmic. And then you can usually get in on like a really short, like 30-minute wait. But then you're taking a chance that the ride didn't break down over the course of the day. So I waited in a 70-minute line. I was satisfied. It was an incredible experience. So let's talk experience, because there's two experiences you get to do at Galaxy's Edge that I've been waiting to do for years, and that is building your own Star Wars stuff. And that starts with the Droid Depot, which I wish I got more film and photo of, because it's super, super cool. Outside, you're going to be met by a few unique looking droids and a couple of more familiar looking astromech designs. And these are more interactive. They will actually move and beep. And if you like, there's a game you can play on your app when you're playing on the park. And if you can actually activate certain things that will make them work more. So super cool, super cool. And then inside, it really does look like a droid factory. It kind of is very reminiscent of, if you watched Return of the Jedi, and inside Jabba's palace, and you just have like droid parts going, hanging on hooks on a conveyor going across the ceiling. That's in the Droid Depot. And then if you were going to build your droid, you go to the back of the area, and there's a conveyor belt where just piles and piles of parts are just cycling through. They give you a little basket, you fill it up with whatever parts you want. You bring it, they take you over to one of the assembly trays. Someone helps you. They've got a dangling screwdriver, like an actual like assembly line to actually like screw your droid together. And they give you the parts to finish it off. So you're building your own astromech. You're building your own droid. And then there's this really cool sequence they do where it's supposed to be like they're activating the droid itself, but the reality is they're really just pairing it with the controller, because it's a 6 AA battery setup to get that droid working, and everything's already got batteries in it. So this thing will work as soon as you are ready to take it off. And the cool thing about that is the droids actually do work. They leave it on in the little carrying case they give you, because the droid will actually act according to where you are in the park. If you just have like the generic programming, which is to be like BB-8 or R2-D2 or Chopper, then in the first order areas of the park, if you enter the first order area, while you are holding this droid, he'll start to sound scared, and he'll move around and bleep and all that. And then if you enter the resistance area, he'll start sounding happier, more chatty. And when you pass by other droids, they will react. If you go back into the Droid Depot, they will react. And it's kind of like they're a little bit alive, so if you go to do this, plan to have a few hours in the day to just walk around with your droid and just let it increase the atmosphere of the park, which is a super cool thing to do. So my droid, by the time said and done, ended up looking like this, which is very much in my brand colors, but it's not the way I wanted him to look. So when you look at the videos show so many different parts and things that they no longer offer at Droid Depot, at least not at the Orlando one. For starters, this was supposed to have the R6 head, which they still have in white, one with red and one with purple, but the black one they don't have, and I don't understand why they would remove that. There's no other purple in the entirety of the Droid Depot, by the way, unless you're buying like the alternate panels. There's purple there sometimes, but if you want like the black R6, you can't have it anymore. It's apparently out of production. So I'm just like trolling eBay crawling eBay every single day, just going like, is someone selling it? I don't care if it's already on a droid. I will pay for the whole droid just to get the head off of it. You know? So it's a little bit frustrating that they would actually remove options from rotation and actually give you less to build. But it is what it is. A classic R2 dome, works for now until I get it. The other thing is they don't sell the stickers anymore. So they used to sell labels that fit inside all these little panels and grooves across your R2's body in order to add some more color to it. And in some cases, it's the only way to actually add these colors to your droid. If you want your droid to have yellow, you need to add stickers. If you want your droid to be green, there is no alternate panels you can buy. There is no parts on the conveyor belt that have any green in it. If you want green on your droid, you needed to buy the sticker sheet. Well, they don't have the sticker sheet, and you should know me by now. Everything in my life's got to be green. So I'm frustrated. I don't get to build the droid I want. The head is wrong, and the colors aren't right. But you know what? The colors are easy enough to fix on Etsy. So at the moment, he now looks like this. And it's the green and gold that I love the combination of. He's as close as he's going to get until I can actually get a replacement head for him. And he's still beautiful. He's still beautiful. I still love how it's still fun to experience. Not quite the droid I was looking for, but he's part of the family now. So it's a great experience. It's a really fun experience. Fun enough, I decided to do it again. Gee, I wonder why he didn't have any budget for TFCon. But I'm fascinated by how the BB units work, so I wanted a BB unit. And when I go back, because I will go back, I can absolutely see myself building another droid. If I can't find a black R6 head, I'm probably going to build a red droid that has the R6 head just so I can have like some semblance of it. I might make that one a little bit closer to like my branding colors, and we'll give him like black panels or something. But it leaves me room for growth here. But I only want one of the BBs. I don't feel the need to, because it is a more dull experience, to be fair. It's a little bit more boring than building the R2. So I'm building that one. I'm probably going to build another R2 next time I'm there. I'm probably going to build a chopper at some point if I go back again. But still, droid building's fun. So droid building's a lot of fun. Even if it is a little bit more limited than it used to be. And then we have the lightsaber building. And of course, if you're going to Galaxy's Edge, you got to do the lightsaber build. I know it's expensive. And I know you've got to get an appointment ahead of time. It's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Consider this. It's $250 to do this, okay? So the replica saber hilts cost $160, all right? It costs another $50 to buy the blade, because not everyone wants the full lightsaber blade. They just want to display the hilt, so they sell them separately. So if you want the blade too, it's $210. This gets you a replica saber that is also made of metal, by the way. The core is solid plastic, but everything else is made of metal. So you're getting a very heavy replica lightsaber. You are getting this full show. It's a fantastic show. You are getting a free Kyber crystal as well, which is, I think it's $17.99 now. They love this because like there's like six Kyber crystals to buy. The droids also have personality chips to change the sound effects on them. So there's like 9 different chips like that. So they nickel and dime you on just letting you buy variety. But all this stuff interplays. So, the more you buy, the more worth it every purchase becomes. And that's where I realize I'm in a Kamen Rider gimmick all over again. But when you're building these lightsabers, the brilliant thing to them is they are that high quality. You're getting the Kyber crystal for free. So like we put in like another $18 into this. So like now we're at $228 for this whole experience. And then there's the fact that it's going to be custom built the way you want it to be. You're getting a full show, and you're going to get a carrying case. You're going to get a sheath to protect the lightsaber while you walk around. So I think with everything that gets thrown in and all the extra stuff you're getting a part of this experience, I feel like it's perfectly priced by comparison to the actual lightsabers. And you're getting a fantastic, I keep describing the experience. So when you walk by, it's just a blank area with like a cat. You might see the cash register and a few workers around, but if you didn't know what it was, you'd completely mistake it. You'd think it was just like a beverage stall, you know? And that's the intention, because this whole thing has an underground vibe. You go to like the staffer, you tell them your appointment, and then they will take you over to these like tool drawers that you can pull out and actually see the samples of the parts you're going to build with, so you can choose in advance. And then once you're ready, you go to the register, you pay, which you pay in credits, by the way. Everything in this Star Wars world is credits, not dollars. So you pay your credits, and they give you a pin according to whichever one. You pin it to your shirt, and it's a different design for everyone, so the people inside can tell which one you chose. So it's an extra souvenir. So on top of like $228 worth of value, you're also getting an exclusive pin. So if you want to tack on, like another like $15 for a Disney pin, there you go. You're basically at $250 right now. So you go inside, and like when you go inside, they lead you in, and there's like a secret knock thing, and then like the person on the other side opens the door, and like everyone kind of like hush guide in, because this is all like underground stuff, because they don't want the First Order to know that they're letting people build lightsabers from scrap parts they found. As they keep referring to it as scrap metal. So you have 4 choices. You have the classic Jedi look, which I thought was like too clean, too sterile, a little bit too simple. You have the Sith, which looks cool, but it's very Sith. It's like it's got spikes, exposed wires, black. Everything's black. And it looks cool, but it's very typical, Sith saber. You have elemental nature, which I think I want to build next time, because the parts are still metal, but they look like they're all built out of natural materials, wood, bone, leather, that kind of thing. And it's a very personal, like it's a very different style lightsaber. And then there's the one I chose that you've been seeing on screen for like the last 5 minutes. And this is defense and protection, protection and defense, one or the other. And it's designed like High Republic, like old school lightsabers. So it's a lot more ornamental. It's a lot shinier and flashier. And like there's runes carved into it with ancient meanings. It actually just means force wielder, by the way. But don't tell anyone, it ruins the magic. And the silver areas to it, if you look carefully, actually has like a hammered metal look to it. And they used to have different parts. This year they refreshed all the parts, and the older style definitely looks much more worn, and that hammered metal is far more pronounced. It's a lot more subtle here, but it's still there. And I've been wanting to do this lightsaber build for years. I knew years ago I wanted to do this style, but I really prefer the new parts to the old. I'm really happy with how the new parts look and how my lightsaber ended up looking, which looks like this, by the way. This is my beauty. This is what I've got on display at my house now. I printed out, like, Disney wanted $50 for the official lightsaber stand, and then if you wanted and then they sold cups to store the kyber crystals that attached to the stand, to the front of the stand and the sides, and they wanted $15 each for those, because all of these things have LEDs in them, and when you drop the crystal in, the LEDs automatically lit up, so it lights the crystal up, which is kind of a useless feature, and that just means I'm going to run down on batteries. So if you wanted one that had all 6 lights, kyber crystal colors, and the saber holder itself, you're talking like $120. And I look at this and I go, ha 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 ha, laughs in 3D printer. So I'm designing my own, or at least I'm modifying one for myself. But yeah, like the whole process is like kept very like ceremonial. They'll show you each crystal color. There's only 4 colors available. You have to go buy white and yellow separately, but they'll give you the significance in the major holders of each crystal. And as each crystal is described, the room lights up in that color. So when they start describing the red, it gets super ominous as they describe the Sith. And they just talk about the legacy of the lightsaber and the importance and like the significance of building your own. And everything is treated with like a great amount of respect and reverence, and like they invite you to like just, kind of explain, why did you choose this crystal? Why did this color call out to you? And I'm like trying so hard to say like, it's just, I like green. I just like green. And they said like, what, and I just say like, yeah, like everything I love in my life has been green, and it's like, and they say like what? And I go, well, like turtles are my favorite animals. And then I hesitate to continue because everything else that I could explain is from a licensed property that Disney does not own, and I really don't want to throw off the mood by describing Power Rangers and Pokemon. But they try to keep it all like very, very organized. And when you're done with your lightsaber, when you're done building it, they give you like a little test to make sure everything works and everything's fitting together snugly. Like one of the workers puts it into this tube beside you. And what they're doing is attaching it to the blade inside. Right? But that's kind of kept hush-hush. It's basically covered over so you can't tell a blade's there. And at the end of the ceremony, they invite everyone to take a hold of their blade, hit the switch, and light it up at the same time. And then the case, all of the sheaths slide open to reveal the saber blades, and everyone raises the blade up at the same time. And it's a super cool moment. Like, giddy happy. Like, emotionally happy. Like, getting emotional over this experience. It's that freaking cool and that freaking immersive. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Again, I want to do this again just for the experience, or not even to just get more lightsabers, but just like for the experience of it. Cannot say enough good things about it. And that's basically it. Because I've been going for almost an hour, and in my head I was thinking like, I've got a lot of photos, I've got a lot of little clips I want to insert, but this can't possibly take more than like 20 minutes, right? Ha 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 ha. So if you made it all the way through this very extended explanation of this theme park, thank you very much for watching. I deeply appreciate it. I promise you, there's Transformer content coming tomorrow. So until then, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you next time.
We parlay with the captain.
You think a werecroc is going to listen to elvish rules of piracy?
Of course it would be the freaking elves that invented parlay.
I had to think of a quick replacement for the French.